The first step is to change your protein. The Medway emphasizes eating primarily plant based foods. Replace some of the meat in your diet with plant based proteins such as beans and legumes often. Eating fish and seafood at least 3 times a week. Include fatty fish such as mackerel and salmon. Avoid fried fish if you can. Eat white meat poultry such as turkey and chicken at least twice a week. And limit your red meat and or choose lean red meat. The protein choice continuum can help take the confusion out of this important step. I really love this continuum graphic. So, on one end, you have beans, nuts, and seeds. You want to eat those very often. Replace some of the meat in your diet with beans, nuts, and seeds. And then, as you move towards the right, you have fish and seafood. And then you have your white meat and poultry. Choose these more often. Then you have your fat-free dairy and eggs. And then you move into your lean red meats, and then dark meat. Higher fat dairy gets towards the right hand side, and all the way on the right, you're going to have some of those trans fats and processed meats um, that you want to stay away from. So, a big part of changing your protein is limiting meat, and that means beef, pork, and lamb. We recommend no more than 2 to 3 times per month with serving sizes of 4 to 6 ounces. Less is even better. So, if you have a patient who indicates that they want to eat more red meat than that, then tell them that lean cuts are better, smaller portion sizes are better, um, and they should keep this and take this into consideration because it's arguably the most impactful dietary change you can make. Eat more fish, eat more plants, and eat less meat. Here's a great way to do that. If they can replace half of the ground meat in the recipe with vegetables, this will help decrease the amount of meat you're eating while allowing you to still enjoy favorite flavors. So, for example, you can replace half of the ground beef with lentils. Lentils are very cheap. They absorb the flavor of whatever they're cooked with, and they have a meaty bite. Another way to do this is greatly limit or eliminate processed meats. Research shows that there's no real safe level of processed meat consumption. So, something you can do about that is using less bacon in recipes or freezing and using it just one piece at a time so it doesn't go bad. We should choose poultry often. So, that's white meat poultry such as turkey and chicken at least twice a week. And if you cook enough for 2 to 3 meals, when you're making chicken, load up on the grill so that you can plan for an easy, quick meal later. We also want to increase fish, so eating that 2 to 3 times per week at 3 to 4 ounces per serving, making at least one serving a high fat fish such as salmon. And there's lots of ways to do that. It doesn't have to be straight fish. You can make tacos, you can put it in with pasta, or you can make a burger out of it. What can I do about fish and seafood being expensive? So, one choice is to choose canned. Canned fish and seafood are healthy and affordable options. If we can choose canned products that are packed in water or olive oil, that's best. Take a look out for sales and coupons, taking advantage of store sales. Often you can get buy one, get one free, or you can find a certain amount off of those fresh fish ideas or buy frozen. By eating the Medway, you will be replacing meat with fish, seafood, and other healthy proteins, so this will decrease your food budget in other ways. Since we're recommending such an increase in fish, what about the mercury question? Lots of patients ask about this. Are we making too much of mercury? Don't let the fear of mercury stand between you and eating fish. The most common fish and seafood eaten in the United States presents very little risk from contaminants like mercury while offering many health and nutrition benefits. Methylmercury enters the environment and is consumed by small fish, who are consumed by larger fish, who are consumed by even larger fish. So, this is called bioaccumulation and results in larger fish having larger amounts of mercury. Many of the fish that are commonly consumed are low mercury fish like salmon, pollock, oysters, shrimp, catfish, clams, scallops, etc. These are all low mercury fish. There are a few exceptions. So, populations that need to be concerned with mercury consumption are small children and pregnant women. Pregnant women and small children should eat a variety of low mercury fish each week. But pregnant women and small children should not eat fish that are raw, partially cooked, or high in mercury, such as shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, marlin, orange roughy, big eye tuna, or a local catch from contaminated water. Another way to change your protein is to increase plant protein. So that means more beans and legumes. It's a great way to improve your health. Beans and legumes are lower in calories and higher in fiber than other sources of protein, as well as providing a sense of fullness and satiety. Beans and legumes are also very budget friendly. A few different ways to do that are to make double lentils and use it as a bed for fish or chicken instead of rice. Make a quinoa pinto bean burgers and freeze them, or make some white bean hummus for a great go-to lunch. Canned beans are a good option, especially if you are new to beans. Make sure you rinse your canned beans before use to remove about 30% of the sodium that they add for packaging. You can also use a slow cooker or a pressure cooker to cook your dried beans. Lots of patients may be worried about gas, so we want to make sure that they're cooking them well. If they're not using canned, make sure they're soaking them for 48 hours, not just overnight, making sure to change the water at least once while they're soaking. Rinse the beans very well after soaking, and then cook until very soft. Make sure you keep it fully covered with water while they're cooking. Make sure that you talk to your patients about chewing. That will help your body digest the beans and reduce gas. Slowing down your diet, chewing slowly, and also adding beans slowly into your diet. Hummus is a great start. And add some spices that aid digestion, including ginger, cumin, and epazote. They'll all decrease that gas. Make sure to add salt very late in the cooking process to help get beans soft. Adding salt too early will hinder beans from softening. Canned beans need to be rinsed well and cooked to further soften canned beans if needed. What about patients that are vegetarian? Eating vegetarian is consistent with the Med way of eating, and protein usually isn't an issue if you're consuming plant-based proteins such as beans and legumes. The only items that vegetarians are really missing from the Med way of eating is fish and seafood. They may be missing out on omega fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, due to not eating fish and seafood. So they may need to supplement if they're not getting any of that in their diet. If their patient is vegan and they're not consuming fortified foods, they may need to take a B12 supplement. What about dairy and eggs in the Med way? The traditional Mediterranean style eating pattern is not high in dairy, just typically 1 to 2 servings per day. So for yogurt, we want to choose a low-fat or fat-free yogurt. Cheese in small amounts only. Milk in small amounts, and we're trying to choose skim or low-fat milk. For eggs, we can eat up to 7 eggs per week. So choosing fat-free or low-fat dairy when you can, and if you're eating higher fat dairy, make sure to eat it in smaller amounts. The American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology recommend a low saturated fat diet. The Mediterranean style eating pattern is very low in saturated fat. Here's a quick review all on one slide about the steps you can take to change your protein. So we want to limit meat, which means beef, pork, and lamb. We want to limit or eliminate highly processed meats like bacon. We want to choose white meat, poultry, increase seafood and fish, increase plant protein, including beans, nuts, and seeds, and then choose the Med way of dairy and eggs, as I just explained. Changing your protein is arguably the most impactful dietary change you can make. These little bits on eating mindfully may seem a little silly, but as our society speeds up, it's more and more important to slow everything down at mealtime. So eating mindfully means eating with awareness of what is on your plate, and also of the entire eating experience. So mindful eating is being present in the moment and enjoying every aspect of the meal that you're eating. Meal planning is a key step of being mindful in your entire eating program. So planning meals will help you be mindful of the types of proteins you're eating. It will assist you in changing your protein and making it easier to choose healthy protein options that we've talked about, such as plant-based proteins, fish, seafood, and white meat, poultry on a regular basis. So as we focus on that planning piece, we want to take 30 minutes a week. That's all we're going to need to be able to plan out dinner for each night. We want to make a list of the main dish and side dish that you'll serve, And then we can explore recipes either online or some of your favorites that can be modified. So when we're thinking about this planning, we want to make sure to keep it simple. We want to select recipes with just a few ingredients. It doesn't have to be complicated to be delicious. And thinking about that as well, we want to make sure we feel comfortable preparing these meals. We want to choose entrees that are simple, have simple cooking techniques such as sautéing, roasting, and grilling. Another piece of that planning is making a shopping list. We want to make a shopping list based on the menu for that week. We want to use a list that helps us remember the things we need and sticking to our list so we're not getting things we don't need. And making sure that we're not duplicating things we already have in the house. I want to take just a second here on this slide. So we want to make sure we keep balance in mind when we're planning. So that healthy eating plate seen here is a great guide for visualizing what to include on your plate when eating the Medway. So making sure, looking again, that vegetables, it isn't a quarter, it's more than a quarter of the plate. And fruits then with the vegetables make up half the plate. And always focusing on that whole grain piece and making sure that water or unsweetened beverages is the fluids that you're incorporating into your meal. Talking a little more about planning, we can use leftovers or planovers. Leftovers sometimes get a bad reputation. If you plan to use the extra, however, leftovers become planovers. And we can make your week a lot less hectic in the kitchen. So making extra on purpose of an entree or side dish and planning to have it another meal during the week is a great way to save time and money. So think of the remaining food as an ingredient and not the same food a second time around. So tonight's roasted chicken can be reinvented in chicken quesadillas tomorrow night, for example. Or throw it on a green salad for lunch the next day. Or even chop the meat up and mix it in with olive oil, celery, walnuts, and grapes for a great chicken salad. Some foods taste better the next day after the flavors have had a chance to mix and develop. Foods like lasagna and soup often taste better the next day, especially if you freshen them up. Pour extra pasta sauce over a piece of lasagna when you reheat it so it stays nice and moist. Add fresh herbs and toppings such as nuts or a squeeze of citrus to soup. Freezing foods also allows you to have the pre-cooked meals that you can just pull out of the freezer on a busy weeknight and serve to your family. Take note of the web address on this slide, medinsteadofmeds.com, where you can find lots of extra recipes and techniques to use with patients. So if we remember, the 7 steps to eating the Medway are changing your protein, which is what we've already talked about, swapping your fats, eating more vegetables, eating more fruit, snacking on nuts and seeds, making your grains whole, and rethinking your sweets. So now we're going to be talking about both swapping your fats and snacking on nuts and seeds. There are lots of great and inexpensive ways to add nuts and seeds to your diet, and this can be a really helpful way to find plant-based foods to add to the diet. A couple of key things to keep in mind when we're talking about swapping your fats are to choose olive oil. Replace solid fats like butter or margarine and other oils with olive oil. Use olive oil for cooking, in dressings, and marinades. And then make sure to consume at least 4 tablespoons per day while keeping within your calorie budget. So let's think back to the fat-free craze from the 70s to the 90s. Fat-free products were all the rage. Fat-free products were in abundance and ranged from items such as fat-free soups and snacks to fat-free desserts and half. At the time, it was believed that people were eating healthy when they chose fat-free or low-fat products in place of their full-fat counterparts. However, fat was removed from foods and replaced with refined carbohydrates. So people were replacing olive oil-based dressing with fat-free ranch dressing high in sugar or starch, or they were replacing nuts and seeds with pretzels made of white sugar and salt. So in an attempt to remove the fat from the diet, healthy or not, we really just replaced fat with refined carbohydrates. So, what we know for sure about fats is this: replacing saturated fat with refined carbohydrates does not decrease the risk of chronic disease. Replacing fat with refined carbohydrates during the fat-free craze did nothing to decrease our risk of chronic disease, nor did it decrease the prevalence of chronic disease such as heart attack, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Replacing saturated fat with poly and monounsaturated fat has positive health benefits. So saturated fat is generally found in animal-based products like meat and dairy, while unsaturated fat is generally found in plant-based products. So today we're going to talk a lot about strategies for replacing saturated fat with unsaturated fat. We know that consumption of a low-fat diet is not associated with a decreased risk of chronic disease, nor is it associated with lower weight. During that same fat-free craze, we thought that eating low or non-fat foods which are formulated to be low in fat, would help us decrease our risk of chronic disease and lower our body weight, but this was not the case. And there's no safe level of trans fat. So trans fat, which are partially hydrogenated oils, are now required to be listed on the nutrition facts label. Keep this in mind, if trans fat foods, the content in a food is under 0.5 grams, food manufacturers can list 0 grams trans fat on the label. To be sure you're avoiding all trans fat, check to make sure partially hydrogenated oil are not listed in the ingredient list. Here's another great continuum. Take a minute to look at this graphic from left to right and look where it's easy to tell what you should eat more of and what you should eat less of. So it's sort of a benefit to harm ratio. The beneficial fats are the polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats on the left. These fats generally come from plants or seafood. These fats have been found to have health-promoting properties. The non-beneficial fats, which are the saturated and trans fats towards the right side of the continuum, are fats that are solid at room temperature. These fats have either not been found to have health-promoting properties, like saturated fats, or have been found to be harmful to health, such as trans fats. So the saturated fats generally found in animal products are meat, butter, cheese, milk, etc. The saturated fat does not have health-promoting properties. The trans fats, or the partially hydrogenated oils, are man-made fats that can be found in processed foods, fried food, baked goods, and convenience and freezer foods. There's no safe level of trans fat. So the overall goal is that we want to replace the non-beneficial fats that we are using, like the saturated and trans fats, with beneficial fats, like the poly and monounsaturated fats. By reducing the amount of non-beneficial fats we eat and drink, we free up space in our diet for beneficial fats. Take a look at this oil comparison chart. This chart illustrates the fat composition of different cooking oils. So how much monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fat that each oil contains. So from the chart, if you look about halfway down, you'll see olive oil, and you can see why olive oil is being held up as the primary oil to consume within the med way of eating. It's very high in unsaturated fat and low in saturated fat. Moreover, olive oil is more affordable and easier to cook with than other oils with similar compositions, like hazelnut or almond oil, for example. It is a versatile oil that you can use to cook or dress your food. Canola oil is another oil that stands out as an affordable and versatile option that is high in unsaturated and low in saturated fat. It also has a pretty neutral flavor. Other oils can be used in cooking, but the composition of olive oil and canola oil, along with their affordability and versatility, make these the recommended go-to oils for the med way of eating. One other thing I wanted to point out is that we've talked a lot about saturated fats being from animals, mostly. But if you look at the very bottom, you'll see two in particular, palm kernel oil and coconut oil, that are high in saturated fat and therefore solid at room temperature. So we need to make sure that we're keeping an eye out for those as well. Nearly 9 out of 10 people are worried about consuming dietary fat just as much or more than they were 5 years ago. So despite evidence supporting the benefits of unsaturated fat, many people continue to worry about the general consumption of dietary fat. So we need to sort of bust this myth. So here, to get that 4 tablespoons of olive oil per day, here's a couple ways you can do that. For those new to the med way of eating, this might sound like a ton of olive oil, and you might feel that this would cause you to gain weight. However, we're talking about swapping the types of fats you are currently eating for olive oil, not adding olive oil to the fats that you're already eating. So let's look at an example of a day of eating the med way, where you would be getting the recommended amount of olive oil. So for breakfast, perhaps you would have olive oil toast. So 2 teaspoons, about 1 teaspoon of olive oil per slice of toast. And then maybe for lunch, you'd have salad with olive oil vinaigrette. So that's 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then for dinner, roasted vegetables is part of your dinner with 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So with dinner or lunch, maybe olive oil sauteed chicken breast is either part of your lunch or dinner, which may be a teaspoon of olive oil total. So from all of that we've just mentioned there on the left, or there across the slide, you'll have 3 to 5 tablespoons of olive oil. Depending on your calorie needs, 3 to 5 tablespoons might be about what you would need in terms of daily olive oil intake. This is just one example, but it illustrates how easy it can be to get this amount of olive oil in your diet. Going back to the planning piece that we were talking about in the previous section, we want to make sure to plan so that we can say goodbye to store-bought salad dressings that could be high in trans fats or those undesirable saturated fats or even high in refined carbohydrates. It's simple and delicious to make your own salad dressings. Check out this easy formula for making a salad dressing that you can keep in your refrigerator. It's lower in cost and healthier than store-bought dressings. And since you can control the ingredients, you can make your dressings based on your family's favorite flavors. So you want to start with a jar that has a screw top lid, add some kind of acid, then add your oil. Start with half acid to half oil and add more oil as needed based on your specific taste preferences. Then add your herb seasonings. Shake well and serve. Store in the refrigerator for a few weeks. So when you're serving it again, make sure to take it out a few minutes before to allow the dressing to reliquefy in case it hardens in the refrigerator. Here are a couple of examples on how to change from using saturated fats to more poly and monounsaturated fats like olive oil. So you can replace bacon fat with olive oil if you saute. You can replace butter with olive oil, for example, on toast. And you can replace mayonnaise on olive oil, like in tuna salad. Using olive oil doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, but let's look at a few tips on buying olive oil. So we want to make sure we choose olive oil that's in a dark bottle or can. If olive oil, or any unsaturated fat for that matter, is exposed to light, it begins to break down. The dark bottle or can helps protect the oil and increase the shelf life. We want to make sure to choose an extra virgin olive oil. So extra virgin, which is a regulated designation, and that's important, is the highest quality olive oil. This slide shows 2 types of olive oil, pure or 100% olive oil on the left and extra virgin on the right. Both are healthy olive oil choices, but the extra virgin olive oil is a higher quality oil and tends to have more robust flavors. Some people opt to use pure olive oil, like that on the left, for cooking, and extra virgin for dressings and drizzling. However, extra virgin olive oil is well suited for all of these tasks. If you're going to have one olive oil in your home, make it extra virgin olive oil. We also want to look for a best by date to ensure the quality of the olive oil. The best by date relates to when the olive oil should be opened by. Once olive oil is opened, and then you introduce air into it, it impacts the shelf life. Upon opening an olive oil container, it is recommended that it be used within 30 to 60 days. So we want to make sure to buy olive oil in appropriate size containers so that we'll use it within 30 to 60 days. We want to find an olive oil bottle that fits your needs and cooking style to keep it near your prep area. And we want to store it away from light and heat, so away from your stove in a cabinet. Olive oil, like I said, doesn't have to break the food budget. Using 3 tenets of buying olive oil, that we've discussed here today. So using a dark bottle or can, make it extra virgin, and look at the sell-by date, and let that guide your olive oil purchases in a way that works for your food budget. You can purchase quality olive oil using the 3 tenets as your guide at grocery stores, discount home goods stores, online, or any other place that you go shopping. Now we're moving on to snacking on nuts and seeds. We want to make sure to choose at least 3 ounces or 3 small handfuls of nuts and seeds per week while keeping within the calorie budget. Avoid candied, honey roasted, and heavily salted nuts and seeds. So now you might be asking which nuts or seeds should be the go-tos. This slide illustrates health benefit highlights of different nuts and seeds. So if you look on the left, that's highlighting walnuts. Almonds are on the right, and pistachios and peanuts are in the middle. So picking a variety of nuts and seeds are going to give you the health benefits of all of them. So picking your favorites is going to be a good way to go as well, because they all have health benefits. Switching your snack choice from refined carbohydrate products to nuts and seeds is a delicious, satisfying, and beneficial way to your health. In addition, you're going to get added vitamin and mineral content from the different nuts and seed choices. That being said, because we want to aim for 3 ounces of nuts and seeds per week, it's important to be able to recognize what an ounce of nuts or seeds looks like, especially since they can come in a variety of packaging and amounts. So nuts are high in calories, so it's important to be mindful of staying within your calorie budget. Let's take a look at some of the ways we can do that. So here are a few different ways to estimate an ounce of nuts or seeds. You can save a baby food jar or a 1/4 cup, the surface area of a 3x3 sticky note, a small handful, or you can spread out the nuts or seeds on the surface of a smartphone. You can use a shot glass. The exact number of nuts or seeds in an ounce varies based on the specific nut or seed. For almonds, you can use the 1-2-3 rule. 1 ounce of almonds is 23 almonds. Most grocery stores have pre-packaged bags of nuts and seeds that are 1 serving, an ounce, or 100 calories. You can also make your own serving size packs of nuts and seeds, which will save you money and allow you to pick your favorites. How do you take real steps to include nuts and seeds in your diet? Let's take a look at a couple of ideas. We can add them to foods that we already eat, like salads and grains. We can also top fruits with nuts and seeds. We can also make them our go-to snack and replace traditional snack foods with nuts and seeds. Add nuts and seeds to the food you already eat. So adding nuts and seeds to salads and grains is a great way to do this. Check out some of these ideas here. We can exchange cereal bars and protein bars for nuts, seeds, or nut butter. This will help you replace refined carbohydrates and added sugars found in cereal and protein bars with high-quality protein and fats. So nuts and seeds and nut butters are shelf-stable, they're portable, and they're whole foods. Let's take a closer look at nut butters because they're a really great and inexpensive way to eat nuts and seeds. So when we're buying nut butters, we need to make sure that we read the label. We're looking for a product with minimal ingredients and minimal added sugar. So let's look at these 3 labels in the slide. The nut butter on the left contains peanuts, palm oil, and a little bit of salt. This product has 2 grams of sugar per every 2 tablespoon serving, all of which is naturally occurring from the peanuts. The nut butter in the middle contains roasted peanuts, sugar, molasses, and hydrogenated oils. This product has 3 grams of sugar per every 2 tablespoons serving. Since 1 gram of sugar is naturally occurring from the peanuts, we know this product has 2 grams of added sugar per serving. We're trying to keep the sugar to no more than 25 to 36 grams or 6 to 9 teaspoons per day. The nut butter on the right contains roasted peanuts, sugar, palm oil, peanut oil, honey, and salt. This product contains 5 grams of sugar per every 2 tablespoons serving, and since 1 gram is naturally occurring from the peanut, this product contains 4 grams of added sugar per serving. So to stir or not to stir? You can buy nut butters that are just nuts and maybe a little bit of salt, such as the product featured on the left side of the slide. As these products do not contain an emulsifier, such as palm oil and or sugar to keep the components of the nut butter combined, you'll need to stir them before each use to mix in any oils that have naturally separated over time. If you're buying a nut butter with an emulsifier, with added palm oil or added sugar, look for a product which has minimal added sugar, such as the product on the right-hand side of the slide. Let's look at how to mindfully eat by right-sizing our portions. A portion is what you serve yourself or what a restaurant gives you. You can also think of it as a helping. The reality is that a portion is sometimes larger than it should be. Mindful eating involves being aware of the portion sizes you are eating throughout the day. Right-sizing your portions will help you include healthy fats, nuts, and seeds in your diet, as well as other Medway foods, in a manner that fits into your overall eating pattern. Portions that are offered are often more than we need. Portion sizes have increased over the past 20 years and continue to get larger. Eating larger portions at one meal would not be such a problem if we ate less at the next meal or over time. This does not happen, however. Research shows that we don't compensate for large portions consumed at one meal by eating less at the next meal. Larger portion sizes mean eating more calories than we need over time. The large portions we are continually served are causing portion distortion. We have been served large portions for so long that we have come to expect that is what we will be served. It makes it difficult for us to assess what a normal portion is and the amount that we should be eating. It's also affecting the amount we eat when we eat at home. So what is a normal portion? With all of us being influenced by portion distortion, we need to reset our internal cues as to what a normal portion is. Luckily, our hand can help us estimate several different serving sizes. For example, a small handful of nuts or seeds is about 1 ounce. The palm of our hand is about the same size as 3 ounces of meat, chicken, or fish. So the palm not including the fingers. A deck of cards is also a good guide for estimating 3 ounces of meat, chicken, or fish. Look at the difference between a 3-ounce piece of chicken and a chicken breast that you may buy at the grocery store or be served at a restaurant. In fact, it may be difficult to find chicken breasts that are 3 to 4 ounces. You may need to cut chicken breast into pieces to get an appropriate serving size. There's also a big difference between 3 ounces of hamburger and what we might consider to be a regular hamburger. We can use our thumb or 2 dice to estimate 1 ounce of cheese. Your fist is about the size of 1 cup. You can use your fist to estimate 1 cup of foods like cereal, rice, pasta, and vegetables. A bowl of cereal may be more than 1 cup or 1 serving. How many servings are in one bowl? That, of course, depends on your bowl. Pictured on the right is a bowl that has 3 servings. So if you were to estimate calories for that bowl of cereal, you would need to triple the number of calories from 1 serving listed on the nutrition facts label. This is important when talking to patients about serving size. This is another example how a bowl of pasta may be a lot more than 1 cup of pasta. Cooking and eating at home is a good way to control what you eat and can help you eat the Medway. The best way to get a handle on portion sizes is to measure and or weigh your food, at least the first couple of times that you're doing it. You don't have to do it forever, just do it for a few days or a week. This will help you reset your internal cues as to what a serving should look like on your plate or in your bowl. Keep control by portioning out snacks. Put a reasonable amount of food into a bowl or container and leave the rest of the package in the pantry. Package snacks in small bags for portion-controlled snacking or buy the already prepackaged 100-calorie packs. Another way to have better control is to use smaller plates, bowls, and glasses. Like our portions, dinner plates have gotten larger over time. Some dinner plates are 2 to 3 inches larger than in the past. Using smaller plates will help you control portion sizes and actually make you feel like you've eaten more than you really have. So far, we've been talking about keeping within a calorie budget while also getting nuts and seeds and changing your fat and all this kind of things. But how many calories does anyone really need? The amount of food you eat is an essential part of building a healthy eating style. How much you eat and drink can impact your weight and overall health, including your risk for chronic disease. Calories are just a measurement tool like inches or cups. Calories measure the energy a food or beverage provides. Calories give you the fuel or energy you need to work and play, and even to rest and sleep. So when you're choosing what to eat and drink, it's important to get the right mix, enough nutrients without too many calories. The amount of calories you need depends on your gender, size, and activity level. This table estimates the number of calories a person would need each day to maintain their weight, and it's just that, only an estimate. You can also use the nutrition facts label or nutrition information on menus to better understand how many calories are in a food or beverage. These labels include calories and other useful information to help you choose the right amount of calories for you or your patient. Remember that if you want more information, videos, or recipes, you can check out medinsteadofmeds.com to see more Swap Your Fats or more on Snack on Nuts and Seeds. So this next section is about eating more fruits and eating more vegetables. If you remember the 7 steps to eating the Med Way, we are now on to number 3 and number 4. Eating more vegetables and eating more fruit. So let's start with eating more vegetables. We want to get at least 3 servings or 3 cups of vegetables per day. So we want to choose a variety of colors, as we talked about in the phytochemical section, and eating more of the dark green leafy vegetables such as collards, kale, spinach, and turnip greens. And then we want to eat more fruit and get at least 2 servings or 2 cups of fruits per day. Again, choosing a variety of colors and usually include berries, which contain a lot of anthocyanins. A recent large study looking at the importance of fruits and vegetables with respect to weight found that as fruit and vegetable intake goes up, weight goes down. Items that were found to be associated with a lower weight were berries, apples and pears, cruciferous vegetables, green leafy vegetables, and all other fruits and non-starchy vegetables. The 2 vegetables that were not found to be protective against a higher weight were corn and potatoes. I think that's not surprising. These starchy vegetables are 2 of the most popular choices in the United States, potatoes being the number 1 vegetable consumed. So the takeaway is that we need to not only consume more fruits and vegetables, but we need to focus our attention away from the starchy ones that are so popular in our country and toward other vegetables that have greater health benefits, such as the weight busters featured here on this slide. So make sure you're asking your patients, when you're asking them, do they eat fruits and vegetables, make sure that you're qualifying them with what type of fruits and vegetables they're eating. The evidence is clear. Our diets and our plates should be built around fruits and vegetables. This helps protect against chronic disease and helps protect against overweight and obesity. So why don't we eat more fruits and vegetables? So 1, sometimes they can be more costly. Sometimes we think they may be hard to cook, or people may not like them, or they like other things better. So we're going to look at a few ways to make fruits and vegetables more cost-effective, convenient, and craveable. We should counsel patients to buy what's in their food budget with the ultimate goal of having an eating pattern heavy in fruits and vegetables. So they should build their menu around the available fruits and vegetables that work for their budget, their food taste, and their shopping preferences. They can buy canned or frozen. These products can be great budget-friendly options to get more fruits and vegetables onto the plate. Canned and frozen fruits and vegetables can be great on-hand ingredients to keep in your pantry or freezer, but we need to make sure to read labels. Frozen vegetables and fruits have no added sugar or salt typically. Canned vegetables that are reduced or low sodium or no salt added are best choices. We need to rinse well after opening to reduce an additional 30% off that salt that's added for packaging. Choosing canned fruit packed in water or its own juices is a good option. Making things cost effective goes back to that planning piece again. We want to make sure to plan so that there's no waste, and planning will help you use them before they go bad. Use what you have on hand and be flexible. If you see that you have fruits and vegetables that are about to go bad, you may need to adjust your meal plans accordingly. So bring an extra piece of fruit for lunch or add an additional vegetable into your dinner plan. This is really important. We need to think of the value of the food. So in addition to thinking about how much you pay for the fruits and vegetables, you also want to think about what you're getting by eating them. So it's sort of a return on the investment that you're making. And also thinking that you should be eating smaller portions. So you may even be getting the same amount of portions out of a smaller amount of food. A diet heavy in fruits and vegetables has long-term value and is a good investment. One study found that consuming 9 or more servings of fruit and vegetables a day resulted in a 60% reduction in cardiovascular disease. To make fruits and vegetables super convenient so that they're easy to grab and go, we want to prep. Make sure that fruits and vegetables are ready to go when you need them. So you can get single serving bags. If it fits in your food budget, you can get the ready to eat produce that comes already packaged for you, so it's easy. You can have fruit washed and ready to go. So having it ready and sitting there is obviously easier to grab as if you were grabbing a bag of chips. Leave washed fruit in a bowl on your counter or table so that you remember to grab some when you're hungry or heading out the door. You can put cut up or peeled fruit and vegetables in your lunch. So when you're packing your lunch with ready to eat produce, whether you bought it that way or you prepped it for yourself, will make it more likely that you'll eat it. You don't have to do anything at lunchtime. Pre-prepped produce will make eating fruits and vegetables more convenient. So pre-prepped salad, you can prep it in advance yourself, or you can buy a bag at the store. So again, prepping foods will make them more convenient. You can cook vegetables in advance for use in omelets. It makes for a quick and easy and delicious meal at breakfast time or any time of the day. You can prepare 3 to 5 vegetables in advance each week to have on hand for quick, easy, and delicious stir fry. You can keep dried fruits such as apricots, dates, and figs on hand to use in salads. You can use a fresh orange or canned mandarin orange slices packed in 100% juice just to add a little bit of a different taste. You can roast a pan of vegetables every week. It's easy, convenient, and it tastes really good. So cut up 1 or more of your favorite vegetables or ones that are in season or on sale, toss them in olive oil and a bit of salt, and roast them at 375 for 20 minutes. You can pick 1 vegetable or a mixture of vegetables to roast. You can eat them right out of the oven, or you can store them in the refrigerator and eat them in a meal later in the week. So hot or cold, roasted vegetables are delicious. You can add them to salads, you can put them in soups, and they're already ready to go if you're doing it once a week. Still thinking about convenience, we want to think of leftover prepped or cooked fruits and vegetables or other foods as ingredients. So turn your leftover fruits and vegetables into those planned overs we had talked about. Extra roasted vegetables become an addition to a green salad, tops leftover marinara sauce or sauteed greens with an egg. Grilled vegetables become a sandwich or taco filling, or add extra grilled pineapple to salsa or use on top of some fish. How long will leftover prepped or cooked fruits and vegetables or other foods like cooked beans, raw or cooked chicken and meat keep in the refrigerator? What really matters is how cold your refrigerator is. 45 degrees versus 41 degrees makes a big difference. In terms of food safety, if your refrigerator is 40 degrees or below, all these things will keep for about 7 days. If your refrigerator is above 40 degrees, so 41 or higher, these items will only keep for about 3 days maximum. Use a thermometer so you can be sure to keep your refrigerator at 40 degrees or below. In terms of quality, when you pre-prep raw vegetables and fruits, they may not maintain their quality for 7 days. They could dry out or they could get watery, etc. Just keep an eye on that. Let's look at a couple of ways to make fruits and vegetables craveable. So we want to add flavor with oil and seasoning. So here's a way to make boring steamed green beans into 2 different recipes. So use oil and seasoning to transform boring steamed vegetables or other vegetables into, in the middle there you have that summer green bean salad. So this dresses the green beans and other vegetables with oil, herbs, and seasoning. And then on the right, it's green beans with lemon zest. So that livens it up by sauteing and giving that little bit of an acid from the lemon zest. Again, many people think of a regular salad, an iceberg salad, as very boring, but you can really make it something that is a go-to by adding a few ingredients and just changing the way we think about it a little bit. So the lentil beet salad has arugula, lentils, beets, and curry vinaigrette. So that makes it really convenient. It's really quick and easy. Adds a little bit of protein with those lentils. In the middle there, the quinoa strawberry salad. It's delicious, especially in the summer. Has those green strawberries, nuts, herbs, and a balsamic Dijon vinaigrette. Very easy and fast. And on the right, the apple cucumber slaw, light and flavorful with a really nice crunch. And it adds a white wine or rice vinegar. This is one of my very most favorite ways to tell patients to eat more vegetables is by roasting them. The roasting and caramelization of the vegetables makes them delicious. I'm telling you, even if somebody says they don't like vegetables, they typically like these. They end up tasting more like a French fry taste or even a little bit sweet. Roasted cauliflower is one of my very favorite foods. Another way to make these foods craveable is to add them to foods that your family already loves. So if you typically have a taco night, trading out half the meat in your tacos for mushrooms or lentils can be a really great idea. In the middle there, we have the whole wheat pasta and beans. So that pumps up with puts more vegetables in with the pasta. And then on the right, there's a Mediterranean tuna salad. So these are all very comfort food type items that you can really pack a punch if you add vegetables to them. Let's touch on mindful eating again. So mindful eating is likely going to be a new way of approaching food and eating for many people. So many of us hurriedly grab something, eat standing up, eat in our vehicles, just eating on the go. So it may require a little bit of time and practice to get used to the mindful way of eating. Following some simple mindful eating strategies can help make you become familiar with mindful eating and how to get used to it. So using mindful eating strategies will help you increase the fruits and vegetables you eat by helping you become more mindful of what you eat and how you're eating it. So take simple steps to eat mindfully, and it'll help you better enjoy the experience as well. Moving from mindless eating to mindful eating can make a big difference in how you relate to food and ultimately can have an impact on your eating habits. Mindful eating can be a step towards healthy eating. The concept of mindful eating means paying close attention to every detail of the eating experience. So that's what should you eat, how much should you eat, how should you eat, and why you eat. So you want to eat without distractions. Turn off cell phones or keep them in another room. Turn off and eat away from the TV or computer. Focus on the eating experience instead of newspapers, work, or technology. Make eating an exclusive event. Meals are your time to replenish your stomach and your spirit. Mindful eating will help you do this by helping you focus your attention on the eating experience. So make your eating environment pleasant. Try turning on some background music or lighting or some candles to make your eating environment more enjoyable. Eat sitting down at a table. Sitting down at a table to eat will help you focus your attention on the eating experience. It will allow you to be present in the moment and be mindful of what you are eating, how you are eating, how much you're eating, and who you're eating with. Eat slowly and enjoy every bite. Appreciate the food you eat by taking time to enjoy them. Take time to savor your food. Think about the taste, the texture, and the smell, and any other thing that comes to mind when you're eating. Eating slowly may help you better control the amount of food you eat and give you greater satisfaction from eating. Try to make your meal last at least 20 minutes. Eating is important. Try to give yourself at least 20 minutes to enjoy your food and the eating experience. Listen to your body cues. Mindful eating will help you become better in tune with your body's eating cues. Allow yourself to recognize and listen to what your body is telling you when it comes to eating. External stimuli to eat, such as smelling, seeing, or even talking about food, often override your need for calories. In other words, you may eat because the food tastes good, not because you're hungry. I think we're all familiar with that sensation. Even though you may salivate at the sight of a favorite food, it does not mean you should eat it. External cues may be signaling you to eat, but are you really hungry? Mindfulness leads to intentional choices in eating instead of responding to those external cues, emotions of your environment. Use a hunger scale much like you would use a pain scale. So the hunger scale to help you get to know your body cues and eat more mindfully. So at 1, you have yourself at weak and lightheaded, your stomach is churning. So you want to try not to let yourself get to a 1 or a 2, or a 7 to 10 for that matter on the scale. You want to eat when you're at a 3 or a 4 and put down your fork when you're at a 5 or a 6. So 1 and 2, you're just super duper hungry and you'd eat just about anything in sight. A 3 or a 4, you're hungry or slightly hungry, and your stomach may be giving you some audible cues for that. 5 and 6, you're neutral or you're satisfied, you're comfortable. And then 7 is full, 8 is stuffed, 9, you're just getting bloated, and then 10, you're so full you could be sick. So we want to listen to these cues. Think about why you're eating. Are you really hungry? Or are you getting some external cues like we talked about? Are you having some emotions that are making you want to eat? Be conscious of your hunger and satiety and eat before you get too hungry. So here's some suggestions to help you practice mindful eating. Pause in the middle of your next meal for 2 full minutes and assess how you feel. So talk to your companions, put your fork down. Try eating dinner with your fork or spoon in your non-dominant hand. This can help you slow down when you're eating, and you don't have to do this all the time, but just to see how it feels to eat a little bit more slowly. Eat lunch away from distractions such as your computer. Try moving out of your office to a break area or outside if it's a nice day. Take up an activity such as knitting or crocheting or jewelry making that keeps your hands busy while you're watching TV. The next section we're going to talk about is making your grains whole. So we want to make sure we get a good hold on this section because we're not trying to make this way of eating low carb. We're not trying to cut out carbohydrates altogether. These are a lot of the words that patients know nowadays is keto and paleo and low carb. So we want to make sure that there's an understanding of what carbohydrates are and what's the difference between a whole and a processed grain. So taking a look at that full scope again, those 7 steps of eating the Med Way, we're now moving on to number 6, making your grains whole. So we want to choose whole grain foods such as oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, and popcorn. When choosing bread and pasta, look for the whole in the first ingredient on the ingredient list. So it will say whole grain wheat. Here's another great continuum. So not all carbohydrates or carbs are created equal. If you look on the left, you'll see more minimally processed carbohydrates, and they're the most important part of eating the Med Way. So lots of fruits and vegetables, legumes, eat those throughout the day. Choose starchy vegetables like potatoes, peas, and corn less often than other vegetables, as they're not shown to have an effect, the same protective effect. Then we're moving on to unprocessed whole grains. You want to eat grains as much as possible. So you're going to choose whole grains such as oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, popcorn, and bulgur when possible. Eating unprocessed whole grains in combination with lots of fruits and vegetables and legumes for a delicious combination. Next, you'll see the lightly processed whole grains without added sugar. You want to choose these, such as rolled oats and whole grain pasta. Next, we have foods that are made with whole grains and without added sugar. So not all whole grains, but are made with whole grains. We want to make sure we're choosing 100% whole grain foods when we're getting breads, crackers, and cereals. Look for whole, again, in the ingredient list, you want to look for whole wheat. Whole is the first ingredient. We want to opt for whole grain foods that are made with minimal ingredients and minimal added sugar. And then looking at pasta made with refined grains is next on the list, adding vegetables and beans and fish to refined grain pasta. That's a really good tip to try to add some of that fiber back into refined grains. Add vegetables, beans, and refined grains such as French bread or white rice. If you add those things together, it can make for a more robust meal. So all the way on the right, you have foods and beverages that are high in added sugar. You want to eat and drink those rarely, at most a few times a week. But beware, sometimes grain foods high in added sugar and saturated fat are made with whole grains. So while most whole grain versions are slightly healthier than refined grain options, a whole grain cookie is still a cookie, and a whole grain sugary breakfast cereal is still a sugary breakfast cereal. So save these types of treats for special occasions. Claims that are prevalent in the popular press have unjustly given all grains a bad rap. So there's some best-selling books such as Grain Brain and Wheat Belly that have popularized the concept that wheat or grains are making us fat. So these claims include wheat today is different from wheat in decades past. Wheat triggers diseases such as diabetes, Alzheimer's, depression, headaches, epilepsy, and even ADHD. Wheat causes abdominal or belly fat, and wheat makes the brain not function properly. Let's take a look at that. What's really going on is that we're eating too many refined grains. So many of the grains that we eat in the United States are refined grains, not whole grains. Almost 40% of the refined grains Americans eat is from yeast bread, such as hamburger buns and pizza crust. So these books that we were talking about were not separating refined grains from whole grains. They were just talking about wheat in general. So what you eat matters. Whole versus refined grains. Eating lots of refined grain is associated with increased body fat. Eating at least 3 servings of whole grains a day is associated with decreased abdominal fat. So the takeaway is that whole and refined grains are not the same thing when it comes to overweight and obesity. Most Americans eat approximately 7 ounces of grain per day. Less than 1 ounce on average is whole grain. Using slices of bread, the slide depicts the amount of refined versus whole grains that the average American eats on a daily basis. So make whole grains instead of refined grains the norm in your eating pattern. Here's where we need to make sure that we're clear in our heads and we're clear when we're counseling patients about whole grains. So multigrain may describe several whole grains or several refined grains or a mix of both. 100% wheat does not necessarily mean that the wheat is whole wheat. Made with whole grain does not mean that all of the grain in the food item is whole grain. It could mean that just some of the grain is whole grain. So beware of food products that contain whole grains, but that should still be eaten sparingly. So like items that are high in sugar, saturated fat, or sodium. So remember to eat grains as grains, not food made from grains, when possible. So eat more brown rice and oatmeal and eat less bread, crackers, etc. When you do choose foods that are made from grains, like bread and crackers, make sure you're getting whole grain products. So switch to whole grain products, and this can be done by implementing in small portions. So we're going to explore this in regards to 3 different categories of food: oatmeal, pasta, and rice or other whole grains. Let's take a few minutes to talk about each of these. So switch to oatmeal. Let's look at these different kinds of oatmeal and how you might use them. All the way on the left, you'll see steel cut or Irish oats. They're oat groats, oat grains that have been cut into little pieces. They're the least processed oatmeal. They do take 30 to 40 minutes of cooking time, and they're the recommended choice for breakfast cereal because it keeps you fuller longer. The old-fashioned or rolled oats are steel-cut oats that have been steamed and rolled flat. They're next in terms of processing after the steel-cut oats. They have about a 5-minute cooking time, and they're good for cooking and breakfast cereal. The next one is the quick cooking oats. They're steel-cut oats that have been steamed, rolled even thinner than the old-fashioned oats, and then cut into pieces. They have about a 1-minute cooking time. These are really great for recipes. Now, the instant oats, all the way on the right, are pre-cooked oatmeal that has been dried. You just add boiling water to rehydrate, and that's good for travel. You can make pancakes with oatmeal instead of flour. So there's lots of ways to do some of these things. You can make protein balls with oatmeal. You can substitute it into cookies and other things, other recipes that you make. You also want to switch to whole grain pasta. There's lots of whole grain pasta products on the market now. Today you can find whole grain pasta in all types of varieties. Best of all, whole grain pasta tastes great and is more filling than refined grain pasta. So bulk up your pasta with vegetables as well. You want to add at least as much bulk in vegetables as you're eating pasta. Switch from white rice to brown rice or another whole grain, or even mix the two together. You can pump up the amount of fruits and vegetables that you're putting into your whole grains. Again, try to make as much fruits and vegetable bulk as there is rice or other grain bulk there. Thinking back to that healthy living plate, and we're trying to get a little more than half of our plate filled with vegetables. Another way to mindfully eat is to be able to read labels well. Label reading is one of the best ways to be mindful of exactly what you and your family are eating. Becoming a label reader will help you be mindful of the types of grains you are eating, so that's whole versus refined. So reading labels will not only help you make your grains whole, but will assist you in identifying whole grain products that are low in added sugar, saturated fat, and salt. Let's take a look at some of those labels. So you want to make sure you know exactly what you're eating. So reading food labels helps you make the best choices when grocery shopping. The FDA requires that almost all packaged foods have a nutrition facts label. So small packages and manufacturers with a small production may be exempt from having the nutrition facts label. So this is great news. So we have more control this way. We're able to see exactly what's going on in the foods that we buy that are processed. The bad news is that the label can be confusing if you don't know what the items on the label mean. So the nutrition facts label is a great tool to help you learn about the foods, and learning how to read them is a valuable skill that will help you and your patients choose nutritious and delicious foods. Take a look at this one in general. I'm sure you've seen them, and we're going to specifically go down and look at some individual pieces of that nutrition facts label. So Let's take a look at different serving sizes. Serving sizes have, recently been updated to reflect what people actually eat and drink today. So an old serving size might have given you 4 servings in a pint of ice cream, and that was 200 calories. But people have been eating more, and so they've changed the way they do the servings in a pint of ice cream to reflect that. So now a pint only has 3 servings, which is 270 calories. So we really need to be mindful of what an old serving and a new serving share. And then package size affects how much people eat and drink. There are new requirements for certain size packages, such as those that are between 1 and 2 servings or are larger than a single serving, but could be consumed in one or multiple sittings. For example, both 12 and 20-ounce bottles will equal 1 serving, since people typically drink both sizes in one sitting. But obviously there's more calories in the 20-ounce than there are in the 12-ounce. So being cognizant of the fact of knowing how much is in the packaging that you're consuming is important. So looking at serving size and servings per container, this is a key for patients who may just pick up a container of something and eat the whole thing because it's in their hand. They feel like that they can eat that in one sitting, so that must be a serving. The label helps us determine how many servings are in that container. The serving size used on the food labels are standardized to help us compare similar foods to each other. For example, a serving size for dry cereal is listed in cups, while serving size for crackers is listed as number of crackers. Servings per container is especially helpful when looking at what appears to be a single serving containers. This is what I was talking about. Often, what is sold as a single serving is actually 2 or more servings. For example, a 16-ounce beverage may seem like a single serving, but if you read the label carefully, you'll see that it contains 2 servings. So here's the calorie section. It tells us how many calories are in each serving. Remember that this is for 1 serving of food or beverage. So if that particular container has more than 1 serving, you have to multiply the number of calories by the number of servings. If we ate 2 servings, so 1 1/3 cup of this food, we would get 230 plus 230 calories for a total of 460 calories in what we just ate. So paying close attention to serving sizes is critical to managing calories. Listed first on the label are the nutrients that Americans typically eat inadequate amounts or even too much. These nutrients are identified here in yellow. So eating too much fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, or added sugar may increase your risk for certain chronic diseases, including heart disease, some cancers, and high blood pressure. A new consumer study from July of 2024 indicates that our patients dramatically underestimate the amount of sodium in the diet. So watching that is really important. Total carbohydrates include dietary fiber and sugar together. So look for foods with higher amounts of dietary fiber and lower amounts of added sugar. Americans need to make sure they get adequate dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium in their diets. These nutrients are identified here in blue. Eating enough of these nutrients can help your health and help reduce the risk of some diseases. The percent daily values are based on the daily value recommendations for key nutrients for a 2,000 calorie daily diet. The percent daily value helps you determine if a serving of food is high or low in a nutrient. If the daily value is 5% or less, then the food is low in that nutrient. If the daily value is 20% or more, then the food is a good source of that nutrient. So let me say that one more time. If the daily value is 5% or less, then the food is low in that nutrient, 5 or less. If the daily value is 20% or more, then the food is a good source of that nutrient. So an example from the label on this slide, the daily value for calcium on the label featured is 20%. So the food is a good source of calcium. If you ate 2 servings of this food, you would get 40% of your daily needs of calcium. At the bottom of the nutrition facts is a footnote that explains that the percent daily value is intended to help consumers understand the nutrition information on the label in the context of a total daily diet of 2,000 calories. So remember that not all patients, and most patients actually, will not be on a 2,000 calorie budget. So we need to counsel and make sure that they know that this is for a 2,000 calorie budget. So they need to keep that in mind when reading the label. Let's look at a couple of labels side by side for a comparison. The product on the left is whole milk, and the product on the right is fat-free or skim milk. The skim milk has fewer calories and less saturated fat. The fat content of the milk, however, doesn't affect the calcium content. So both kinds of milk provide 30% of the daily value for calcium, which for many people is the main reason they choose dairy products. So choosing whole or skim milk can both be fine choices depending on your overall eating pattern. Skim milk has fewer calories than whole milk, so choosing skim milk over whole milk can free up calories that you can use to make room for other foods in your day. Whole milk has more calories than skim milk, so if you're choosing whole milk over skim milk, you'll need to adjust the calories somewhere else in your day to make room for the extra calories in whole milk. Also noting between the two that they have the same amount of protein. The thing that's taken out is the fat, and so when you pull out that fat, it's pulling out some of those calories. Here is another thing we've been talking about this whole time about an ingredient list. So make sure that you and your patients are looking at ingredient lists for more information. So the other information on the food label, it just may be helpful in deciding whether you're going to choose a processed food or not. Ingredients are listed in order by weight of the ingredient in the food. So the ingredient present in the largest amount by weight is listed first. For example, you wouldn't want to purchase a chunky chicken soup if chicken was the last ingredient on the list, or buy a cereal that has sugar as the first ingredient. Let's compare ingredient lists. The bread aisle in the grocery store is one of the most confusing for shoppers. There are so many choices. How do you know which one is best for your needs? Take a look at these two loaves of bread. They both look very similar and cost about the same. The dietary guidelines suggest that we choose whole grains for good health. So we are looking for a whole grain bread to purchase for our family. So take a look at the left and take a look at the right. The ingredient list helps us identify which bread is a whole grain bread. The bread on the left is a whole grain food. Whole wheat flour is the first ingredient. The bread on the right does not have any whole grain at all, even though it looks very similar to the other bread. The first ingredient is wheat flour, but it is not whole wheat flour. We have to be careful because not only labeling can be deceiving, but the ingredient lists themselves can be deceiving. So let's take a look at this ingredient list here. You'll see these 4 things are circled. Manufacturers can break apart different kinds of sugar so it doesn't appear as the first ingredient. If the sugars had been grouped together in this particular product, it may very well have been listed as the first ingredient. So let's look at the front of packaging claims. Front of packaging claims can be deceiving too, so buyer beware. Using the nutrition facts label and ingredient list to make a mindful selection is paramount. So this Fruit Loops example said it contains some fiber, 2 grams or 8% of your daily value, but it's very high in sugar, the first ingredient on the ingredients list after corn flour. The 12 grams of sugar per serving all come from added sugar. Remember, we want to particularly limit added sugars. So it contains a mix of refined and whole grains. Don't rely solely on the front of packaging claims. Use the nutrition facts label and ingredient list to help you make a mindful decision to whether you want to buy a product or not. There are some regulations about what terms may be used to describe the level of a nutrient in a food and how these terms can be used. So we're looking at front of package labeling here, and these terms that you see in front of you, how they are regulated. So let's take a look at these examples. So fat-free means a product contains no amount of or only a trivial amount of fat. So that's less than 0.5 grams of fat per serving. Synonyms for free include without, no, non, and zero. A synonym for fat-free milk is skim. Low fat means a product contains 3 grams of fat or less per serving. Light, or LITE, is a nutritionally altered product that contains 1/3 or fewer calories or half the fat of the regular product. So this means that there are 2 products that this manufacturer makes, and this particular one contains 1/3 fewer calories or half the fat of the other one. Reduced fat is a nutritionally altered product that contains at least 25% less fat than the regular product. Again, this means that this manufacturer makes 2 different products. One of them is regular, the full fat version, and the other one is 25% less fat or more than the regular product. So keeping in mind, again, you can always go back to medinsteadofmeds.com to find more recipes. There are also lots of other websites to find Mediterranean style eating pattern recipes. So this is the final section of this Med Instead of Meds grouping, and it's called Rethink Your Sweets. So we're coming to the end of those 7 steps here. So we did change your protein, swap your fats, eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, snack on nuts and seeds, make your grains whole, and now we're moving into rethink your sweets. So this is really important about limiting your sugar intake. So we've talked about limiting your sugar throughout the whole course, but it's such an important step and makes such a difference to chronic disease that it deserves its own section. And so many people have a sweet tooth. We're trying to just reimagine what sweet can look like in different ways so that we're getting more fiber and more nutrients, more nutrient dense and less calorie dense. So we're limiting the sugar intake. So sugar, that means sugar sweetened snacks, candies, desserts, beverages, to no more than 3 servings per week. Sugar is making us sick. This slide illustrates the array of negative health impacts that a high sugar diet is associated with. So at the very simplest level, tooth decay. But also, if we take it a step further, we're talking heart disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome, which includes high blood pressure, blood sugar, and triglycerides, and that lower HDL and more body fat, more belly fat. This increased sugar can also cause diabetes, obesity, gout, and more. You're at higher risk of some cancers as well. This one aspect of the med way of eating, this eating less sugar, has the ability to decrease many of the chronic diseases that we face today. Let's talk about 2 sort of categories of sugar. We're talking about added sugar and sugar naturally found in foods. So added sugar is the type of sugar we want to eat and drink less often. This means they're found in highly processed foods, using sugars to make breads, cakes, soft drinks, jams, chocolates, ice cream, even pasta sauce. This also means the sugars eaten separately or added to foods at the table. So the sugar that's added to coffee in the morning, or the sugar that's added to cereal on the top of a non-sugary cereal, or even in anything that we're baking. So that's not to really be confused with sugar found naturally in foods. This is not the type of sugar we're talking about eating less often. These foods we're talking about, like fruit and dairy products, that when it's already in a food like that, it comes along with higher levels of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. So it's not processed the same way in our body. The way our biology works is that our bodies are predisposed to liking sweet foods. Unlike salty tastes, which are something that we learn to like, sweet tastes are something that we enjoy eating from birth. Our bodies recognize the calories that are coming from sweet things. And sugar just makes us feel good. Consuming sugar signals the release of serotonin and endorphins. So, and then sugar just tastes good. I mean, we crave the different ways sugar can enhance a flavor of something and the different flavors it's good with whether it's chocolate or fruity flavors. It just really can enhance the flavor profile of something. So, we have to sort of retrain our brain. How much sugar do we eat and drink? So, the average American consumes about 152 pounds of sugar per year. That's incredible. Let's look at it another way. 152 pounds of sugar per year is about 26 to 30 teaspoons of sugar per day. So, the average American is eating the amount of sugar you see on your screen every single day. That's about 3 times the amount of sugar that's recommended to eat for a healthy lifestyle to decrease weight, to limit chronic disease. In the United States, almost half of our sugar consumption comes from drinks. So almost half comes from not even eating foods, it comes from drinks. 43% comes from sugar sweetened beverages such as soft drinks or Kool-Aid or sweet tea. 19% comes from grain based desserts such as cookies, pies, muffins, bakery type items. 16% comes from candy, and 9% comes from dairy desserts and flavored milk. So that 43% of the sugar in the diet is not including chocolate milk. That's only counting sugar sweetened beverages like soft drinks and Sunny Delight and Kool-Aid and things like that. It's pretty incredible. The recommended daily sugar intake is 6 to 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day or less. So there's 4 grams of sugar per teaspoon. Sugar is listed in grams on the food label, but we often think or hear or talk about sugar in teaspoons because that's something we can visualize or your patients can visualize. Lots of times grams is sort of a nebulous sort of concept. To help you better decode the food label and know the amount of sugar you're eating and drinking, remember that 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon of sugar, and you're looking at getting less than 6 to 9 teaspoons of sugar per day, added sugar. Recommended daily sugar intake is based on average calorie needs by gender. So that's 6 teaspoons of added sugar or less are recommended for women per day, and 9 teaspoons of added sugar or less are recommended for men. So that 6 to 9 teaspoons of added sugar are recommended per day or less, but a 20-ounce soda has about 15 teaspoons of added sugar. So that's more than twice what women are recommended and almost twice what men are recommended. The average American consumes about 23 teaspoons of added sugar per day. So 74% of processed foods, some of which are not even sweet or thought of as being sweet, contain added sugar. This increases our daily consumption of added sugar, even if we're avoiding sweet foods and beverages. So the recommendation to patients cannot just be avoid sweet tasting foods. This sugar assaults our palates, making us accustomed to a certain level of sweetness, even in foods that are not meant to be sweet. So being mindful of those ingredient lists is really important. So when we're rethinking our sweets and we're looking for added sugar in processed foods, we really need to become label detectives. So we need to read labels to find sugar and to become mindful of how much sugar we're consuming. And we need to be aware that manufacturers may break apart those different kinds of sugar on the ingredient list so that sugar doesn't appear as the first ingredient. Keep in mind that sugar by another name is still sugar. This slide lists different types of sugars that you might see on the ingredient list. So sugar is all types of names, but anytime you see a word ending in ose, O-S-E, you can be certain that that ingredient is a type of sugar. See here, fructose, dextrose, glucose, sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, any of these, in addition to ones that blatantly say cane sugar, brown sugar, all of those are added sugars. Is regular sugar better than high fructose corn syrup? High fructose corn syrup is a very cheap, very concentrated sugar that is used in a lot of foods. High fructose corn syrup is not more harmful than regular sugar. All sugars should be consumed sparingly, not just high fructose corn syrup. So, high fructose corn syrup has been around since 1950. In the 1980s and 90s, it became used in greater frequency in the food supply. As the rise in obesity corresponded with the increased use of high fructose corn syrup, some believe that high fructose corn syrup was the cause. However, it was the general increase in people eating high calorie foods that was causing obesity, not specifically the high fructose corn syrup. So, what about honey? Honey is not healthier than other types of sugar. Honey is still sugar and counts towards your daily sugar intake. Like any other sugar, honey should be consumed sparingly. The same with agave. Agave is not healthier than any other type of sugar. It's still sugar and counts towards your sugar intake, so make sure to use that sparingly as well. The same with sugar in the raw. It's just not as processed table sugar, but it counts towards your daily sugar intake and is not healthier than regular sugar. So sugar is sugar is sugar. Work toward the goal of consuming no more than the recommended daily allowance of sugar in your diet. So that's 6 to 9 teaspoons, 6 for women, 9 for men, no matter what type of sugars you're choosing. This slide shows labels of some foods that we don't think of as necessarily being sweet. Let's look at the labels to see how much sugar they contain. So the label in the upper left-hand side of the slide is spaghetti sauce. This is an example of an ideal spaghetti sauce as it has 5 grams of sugar, but 0 grams of added sugar and about 50 calories in a half cup serving. This means that the sugars are natural to the product itself. They're natural to those tomatoes. Most spaghetti sauces in the grocery store will have a high sugar content. Be sure to read the labels and find one with no added sugars. The one in the lower left-hand corner is bread. Most bread in the grocery store will have added sugar, especially the ones that are labeled honey wheat bread or containing honey even on the front of the label. Be sure to read the labels and find one that has no added sugars, as you can see in this one here. Also be sure to note the serving size. This bread lists 1 slice as a serving size, not 2. So when making a sandwich, everything would have to be doubled. The label in the center is for wheat thins. And although they may seem like a good snack choice, as the name has the word wheat in it, these crackers have 4 grams of added sugar per 16 crackers. That is right around 1 teaspoon of sugar added to each 16 cracker serving. On the right-hand side is honey roasted peanut butter. It has 4 grams or about 1 teaspoon of sugar per 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Make sure to look for peanut butters that have no added sugars. So the takeaway here is that added sugar is in most processed foods, even those that are not sweet. So it's possible to consume sugar and even reach your daily limit of added sugar without even eating anything that you would think is a sugary food. Remember that 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So sugar is listed in grams on the food label, but we often think here and talk about sugar in teaspoons. So keeping that teaspoon to gram ratio in your head is good. To help you better decode the food label and know the amount of sugar you're eating and drinking, remember that 4 grams to 1 teaspoon of sugar. 2 foods that can have a lot of added sugar are cereals and breakfast bars. Here are some guidelines to help you make a low added sugar selection. For cereals, less than 6 grams of sugar per serving. Only a few cereals really meet this standard. So for breakfast, granola, or snack bars, try to get less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 calories. Or you could try nuts or seeds instead as a snack. Keep reading those labels and beware of marinades, sauces, and dressings. So many of those are high in sugar. So look at the ingredients on the list of a marinade featured on this slide. The top 3 ingredients are high fructose corn syrup, water, and vinegar. So this means the marinade is essentially an expensive sugar water with some spices. So if we're making our own, we don't have to worry about that as much. So making med-friendly marinades at home, and you won't have to worry about buying those in the store. So it's lower in cost and is healthier. Since you control the ingredients, you can make marinades based on your family's favorite flavors. Don't drink sugar. If we can change the amount of sugar our patients are drinking, we can really make a dent in the amount of sugar they're consuming per day. About 50% of the sugar we consume comes in liquid form, so that's sugar sweetened beverages. So this slide features some of the most common contributors to the sugar we drink. So soda on the left, sweet tea, juice. So try telling patients to eat fruit instead of drinking the juice because it's got that fiber component in it. Sports drinks and sweetened coffee drinks. All calories are not created equal. There is evidence that the body does not respond to calories in beverages the same way that it does to calories in food. Your body may not register the calories you drink, so you could end up consuming more calories than you need. Calories from liquid may not help you feel full. Another way of looking at it is that your body just does not see or feel the calories from beverages like it does with food. The calories in beverages are stealth calories and can cause you to consume more calories than you need. So don't drink sugar. Your body does not respond the same way to liquids and food calories. Food calories are much more satisfying and are generally more nutrient rich than liquid calories. It probably comes to no surprise that a 20-ounce soda has about 17 teaspoons of sugar. Most cola and other similar drinks, regardless if they're clear, green, brown, orange, or whatever, have about this much sugar. Some a little more, some a little less. Sweet tea has about 16 teaspoons of sugar, and you may think it's a good alternative to cola, but depending on how sweet it is, it can have up to 16, so it's about the same amount of sugar as a soda. So when we're trying not to drink sugar, but we still want the flavor from something, we can switch to something like ginger flavored green tea, which will boost that flavor of the green tea, or a cranberry lime soda, which is 100% cranberry juice with some soda water, and you're still getting some of the sweetness from the 100% juice, but it's not a whole glass full of that concentrated sugar. So we can also flavor our water with fruits, vegetables, or herbs. So think about strawberry mint water, has a little bit of natural sugar from the strawberries, or the cucumber citrus water. It's really refreshing, and it's got the citrus and the cucumber, and it's super simple to make. When we're watching our sweets as well, we want to do it ourselves oatmeal instead of buying a prepared oatmeal product that already has added sugar. So when we're adding our own sugar, we tend to add less than when it is prepackaged, and you can control the amount of sugar you use. The same is true for yogurt. So instead of buying a flavored yogurt that already has added sugar, buy a plain yogurt and add your own sugar. This will allow you to control the amount of sugar that you're using. You can just add fruit, puree the fruit. You can add a little bit of honey, and then you can control how sweet it is. So in order to break your sugar habit, you want to assess your sugar intake and cut back gradually. Start with sugar sweetened beverages because that's the point where you can get the most concentrated bang for your buck. Give your palate time to adjust. Because as we've seen in previous slides, our palates are more accustomed to that high level of sweetness. Allow yourself small sweets so that you don't feel deprived and become more likely to overconsume. Buy high sugar foods in really small quantities and think quality, not quantity. And that's hard for a lot of Americans to do because we want to get a lot for a little bit of money. But we can still get a lot of quality ingredients, high nutrition for smaller prices if we're looking out for what we're buying. We also want to use natural sugar in fruit to calm your sugar cravings. So bulk up on fruits that you really like and combine them with foods that you're already eating. try to think of ways that you can flip what you're already eating into something more healthy. So think about this example. So this on the right, you have a microwave baked apple recipe, which just has an apple and cinnamon. And it's replacing a high fat, high sugar apple pie. Yes, it may take a little bit of time to adjust your taste to this, but eventually you can give the same sort of satisfaction out of a dessert like the one on the right as opposed to like the one on the left. What about artificial sweeteners? The Medway recommendation is to enjoy the natural flavors of the Mediterranean style eating pattern, like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, fish, seafood, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, all that stuff, rather than using an artificial sweetener to sweeten the taste of your food and drink. Using artificial sweeteners may impact your palate expectations, meaning it might leave you expecting food to be sweeter than it naturally is. However, if you are a fan of artificial sweeteners, then know that the artificial sweeteners that are on the market are safe to consume, and artificial sweeteners are a better option in terms of calories than eating sugar. Living mindfully means doing things on purpose, not just going through the motions of how you have always done things. Living mindfully encompasses all aspects of your life and can help you achieve your healthy eating and living goals. Mindful living can assist you in rethinking your sweets as well as implementing all of the 7 steps to eating the Medway by helping you become more aware of your eating pattern and more present in your eating experiences. Mindful living can also assist you in being physically active, which is an essential part of the Mediterranean lifestyle. So here are some simple steps for mindful physical activity. Being physically active is at the foundation of the Mediterranean lifestyle. Like a healthy diet, physical activity is essential to maintaining a healthy weight. Physical activity is an important aspect of chronic disease prevention and control. Being mindful of your physical activity can help you go med by assisting you in making physical activity the foundation of your lifestyle. Following some simple mindful physical activity strategies will help you move more throughout the day. There are lots of great reasons to be physically active. It can improve sleep, it can improve your mood, it can help prevent disease and even manage disease. It can help with stress management, which we all need right around now. It can help manage weight. It can help with current and future mobility, and it can help manage pain. Being active has lots of benefits and can help you achieve your overall healthy living goals. Mindful physical activity can help you take steps towards moving more. Let's take a few moments to look at some of the simple mindful activities strategies that can help you move more. Be aware of how you move your body throughout the day. Do you take the stairs or do you use the elevator? Do you walk to visit a coworker or do you use email? Do you park farther away and walk or look for the closest parking place? Do you sit all day or do you get up every 30 minutes to an hour to move? Think about how active you are on most days. Take every opportunity to move. Take a moment right now to think about the next time you plan on taking a little exercise snack, if you will. Just stand up, move, do a couple of squats, walk around the building, take a trip up the stairs, but move several times a day. Be physically active in ways that you enjoy. Help patients find activities that they enjoy, whether that's dancing, walking, biking, swimming, walking with their kids, taking an extra lap around the grocery store. What do they have the ability to do? What do they like doing? And what do they have the time to accomplish? Put physical activity on the calendar as you would any other commitment. Planning ahead will help you get moving. Use positive talk. Physical activity has long been given a bad rap as being hard and boring. Use positive self-talk to highlight the good things about physical activity. Go from, I have to take a walk after work to, I get to take a walk after work. It's so good for me, and I love the fresh air. Be in the moment and focus on how your body feels during physical activity. Ask yourself, how am I breathing? How hard am I working? How do my legs feel? What is my mood like? Enjoy the benefits of being physically active. Take a minute or two after you are active to think about how you feel. Do you feel better, stronger, happier, less stressed, maybe? This is some really good information to pass on to patients. How much physical activity is enough? So, adults are going to need at least 150 minutes every week of moderate intensity aerobic activity, like brisk walking, or 75 minutes every week of vigorous intensity aerobic activity, like jogging or running, and muscle strengthening activities on 2 or more days a week that work all major muscle groups. So, legs, hips, back, abdomen, chest, shoulders, and arms, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. So I just typically keep in mind that 150 minutes every week of moderate activity. It's an easy number to remember and it's easy to pass on. For even greater health benefits, adults should increase their activity to 300 minutes every week of moderate intensity aerobic activity, or 150 minutes of that vigorous intensity aerobic activity plus the muscle strengthening activities on 2 or more days a week that work all major muscle groups, or an equivalent combination of these things. Here's 2 ways to talk about the intensity level of exercise. First is the talk test. A light intensity, you should be able to sing. Moderate intensity, you should be able to carry a good conversation. And vigorous intensity, you become winded or too out of breath to carry on a conversation. The other way to talk about it is perceived exertion. The perceived exertion is how hard you feel like that you're working. It is a way to be mindful of your body and how you feel overall while doing an activity. When determining perceived exertion, think about all your body, like your body all over, not just your legs or your breathing. Think about your overall effort and rate it on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being nothing at all and 10 being the absolute maximum you can do. You want to feel like you're working, but not working so hard that you're in pain. Generally, an exertion of 5 to 6 is moderate and a moderate intensity activity, and 7 to 8 is a vigorous intensity activity. This is the end of the Rethink Your Sweets section. Remember, you can find more resources, including recipes, online at medinsteadofmeds.com or on other healthy eating sites. This is also the end of the Med Instead of Meds section of this course. Remember to keep in mind when you're talking to patients about the 7 steps. You don't have to acknowledge them specifically, but when you're looking at patients, trying to evaluate their diet and picking out pieces where you think that would be easiest for them to improve to help their own chronic disease. In the next couple of slides, we're going to go through the practical piece of fruit and vegetable prescription programs. So now that you have this information, I want you to use it much like you would with knowledge about pharmaceuticals. How would you get this information into the treatment plan of your patients? Okay, now let's take another look at the case study from the beginning of the course. We have a patient that is new to our practice. She's a 43-year-old Hispanic woman. We are diagnosing her with type 2 diabetes with an A1C of 7.4. She is currently on no medications, is asymptomatic, and has no comorbidities. Let's take a moment to think about the diagnosis and the patient. What nutrition counsel can you give her, and what phytochemical group and what foods would you prescribe to her? Again, look at the algorithm or think about your own algorithm that you use for a new patient like this. How can we use evidence-based nutrition science to get the best outcomes for this patient? First, you're going to want to ask what her favorite foods are, and maybe take a basic 24-hour food recall. I usually ask my patients what they ate in the last 24 hours, and I specifically ask for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it's easier to categorize, for people to categorize their foods into breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I say, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? What did you have for lunch yesterday? What did you have for dinner yesterday? Did you have any snacks in between? What did you drink with your meals? What did you have before you went to bed? And then I say, is that typical for you? Is that a typical day's food for you? And then I ask, what are some of your favorite foods? You may also want to ask where they shop. Where did they get their food? Do they get it at the grocery store? Do they get it at a food bank? Do they get it from a commodities allotment? And what are the barriers to their diet change? So, do they only know how to cook certain things? Are they limited by budget? Are they limited by the availability and access to the foods at the supermarket or the food bank? These are all very important questions to be able to get to the bottom and to be able to make the best recommendation for the patient. For the sake of this case study, we're going to say that these were her answers. So for breakfast, she said she had a breakfast burrito, which had pinto beans, cheese, and chorizo in a tortilla. And she had with that 1 cup of coffee with cream and sugar. Then for lunch, she had chicken soup with rice, a tortilla, and a can of soda. And then for dinner, she had chicken, pinto beans, rice, 2 tortillas, and some water. She states that this is a typical day for her, although her favorite foods are pinto beans, flank steak, and coffee. She typically shops at the local grocery store, and the biggest barrier to diet change for her is that she's used to certain ingredients and she doesn't know how to use different ones. So what is your PhytoRx for her? If this is what your PhytoRx looks like, your prescription, we're going to take it in some different parts. You'll see that the diagnosis is at the top, there's a health focus next, and then the next 3 categories are all phytochemicals. So first we're going to look at diagnosis. There may be some lines there for you to write out the diagnosis that you have, or you may be focusing on several different diagnoses as you see here, like diabetes or heart disease, eye and skin conditions, or possibly cancer. Just marking one that you feel like would work for her, which in this case, we've narrowed it down to diabetes. So we would mark diabetes for her. Then moving down to that health focus section, that's where we want to concentrate on the main aspect, the main general piece of nutrition knowledge that she can start with that can make her healthier in her life. So perhaps we want to change her protein because of the bacon, or maybe we want to make her grains whole because of the tortillas. But there was a stark lack, besides the pinto beans, a pretty stark lack of fruits and vegetables. So I might check eat more fruits and vegetables for her, and then give her a couple of ways that she might be able to do that. Can she add some spinach in with that breakfast burrito? Can she add a side of vegetables at lunch or dinner? Or if she's cooking that chicken soup, can she add some vegetables in the cooking process? So this just gives her it sort of beefs up the dishes she already knows. We know that she has a barrier of getting new foods, of trying new foods. So how can we fit it into what she's already doing? And then for her, we need to pick a phytochemical that's going to do her the most good. So for her, for diabetes, anthocyanins work the best to help control some of that blood sugar. So again, if you're looking at some of these, you can show this prescription to the patient and say, do you see anything on this list that you might like to try, that you know that you already like, that you know would be an easy exchange into what you're already making? So maybe instead of pinto beans, she could sometimes try black beans. That's a very inexpensive choice. It's also on the list here, and it would just sort of flip the way that she's using some of the foods that she's already making. In addition, red cabbage sometimes is an easy switch for people if they're making coleslaw or if they're adding it to soups. If they typically buy the green, but they have red cabbage available, that's another thing that would be easy to switch in. So also, if we think back to the pieces of that PhytoRx wheel, now you've gotten the training, the prescription is in the patient's hand. You can also recommend where she can get some of that food, whether you have a connection with a food bank or where to find it at the grocery store in your local community. In addition, you would want to send her for more education, so North Carolina Cooperative Extension, or if you have a local healthy living program or even a registered dietitian that she has access to. And then any other resources that you have that will bring her back to you on a regular basis to check her A1C to see how she's doing, so we can really reconnect that food piece with the health and disease piece. Let's do one more case study. This one is a 57-year-old Caucasian man with a history of skin cancer on his scalp, but that has been resected. He has no current lesions, and he always wears a hat when he's out in the sun. For breakfast, he usually eats eggs, bacon, and black coffee with sugar. For lunch, he'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and orange juice. And for dinner, he'll have some kind of meat, mostly like a fried chicken or mashed potatoes with green beans, and typically a sweet tea. This is pretty typical for him, although sometimes he'll have one of his favorite foods, spaghetti, but typically has bacon and green beans in there. He shops at his local grocery store, and his biggest barrier to diet change is that he doesn't like to cook. So what is your PhytoRx for this man? So the first part is that he's got skin disease, so we would mark skin disease here under diagnosis. And then moving on to the health. As far as the health focus piece is concerned, maybe we want him to change his protein, thinking specifically about that bacon he's eating in the morning. Now we have to be careful because he did say that one of his favorite foods is bacon. So maybe instead of cutting it out altogether, which would be preferable, we can get him to cut down to 1 piece a day or switching so that he's not eating it every day. And in the meantime, we can bulk up the rest of his breakfast so he doesn't feel deprived because we're taking away some of that bacon. So maybe we're adding vegetables to the eggs. You could even put some leftover spaghetti sauce and mix it in with that. Or we could add a side of fruit in the morning to bulk up that breakfast. In addition, with that spaghetti, if he's making it himself and he's using ground beef, can we have him use half ground beef and half lentils to get that extra fiber and extra vitamins in there? Or if he's buying it already made, can we have him switch to a vegetarian spaghetti instead of a meat version? And then as far as the prescription at the bottom, because he's having a skin issue, we'd want him to eat more carotenoids. So we're looking at those yellow, orange, and red fruits and vegetables and increase in green leafy vegetables. So can he add more bell peppers or more tomatoes to that spaghetti? Can he add sweet potatoes instead of mashed potatoes at an evening meal? Or can he add carrots as a snack? So thinking again about this man, giving him the prescription, having him go to his local grocery store to buy these things, and then recommending that he see his cooperative extension agent or FNEP educator, a registered dietitian, or a local healthy living program, and then giving him some ongoing support each time he comes in for a visit. This concludes Prescribing a Diet to Optimize Health, the healthcare provider training for the PhytoRx program. Please contact me if you have any questions. And I wanted to leave you with some great references here on this screen.